Special teams, I did everything. That's why they call me the blueprint. So I do it all. I can do it all. Doesn't matter if it's kick return, punt return. So it's whatever. Blueprint, man.
With their last pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks took Kenny McIntosh, a running back out of Georgia. And this is a pick a lot like a lot of the other selections in this past draft for our Seattle Seahawks that I absolutely loved, both in the player that you got and the value of the pick itself. And value when it comes to the running back position has become one of the more hotly contested items across the NFL landscape, both in front offices and amongst fans alike. What is the proper value for a running back in the modern era? We already see that it's very hard for them versus other positions in the NFL to get paid. And when they do get paid, you see teams looking for every excuse they can find to pivot off those contracts at the first turn. And this is even more so applied to running backs as it pertains to the draft. Analytic folks came in about 10 years ago and said, no longer should you be taking running backs in the first round. You should wait. It's a position that's so thoroughly stocked with talent every single draft, and it's also a position that's very, very based upon the talent in front of them. How good is their offensive line? How good is their quarterback? How about the other skill position players to take some of that heat off of them? So therefore, they said you should wait to take that running back to the depths of the draft rather than early on in the draft. Well, I myself don't fall in this exact camp. And this has been certainly something that has been a vibrant discussion amongst the Seahawks fan base, as we saw last year with a little bit of the controversy on the Kenneth Walker pick, being him taken in the second round. And it was revisited again this year with the Zach Charbonnet pick. But I've got to acknowledge here that those analytic heads, those folks that tell you to wait for the running backs because you can get that talent later, are kind of somewhat proven right here with Kenny McIntosh, because this is not your typical player that you get in the seventh round. This is not your typical seventh round running back. His talent is very close to those guys taken earlier on in this draft. He has fallen in this particular draft for really two particular reasons. First and foremost, and stop me if you've not heard this one before in the recent videos I've just done with Oluwatimi and Mike Morris, but he fell because he didn't test particularly well. He ran a slow 40, didn't jump very high, didn't have a good broad jump, tested very poorly. And NFL teams, I think we're seeing in this draft in particular, are getting very reliant on those testing numbers. But as we've talked about in other videos, sometimes you've got to turn on the tape to get the whole story of a player. And if you're letting the testing numbers guide you wholly, you're missing out on really that whole story, and you might be missing out on a damn fine football player. He does have one particular testing score that we're going to be talking about in the video breakdown on him on his actual tape that I think is actually a real plus side to his game that's going to aid and help him. But that was the first reason itself. The other reason would be productivity. Though he's been pretty productive for the Georgia over the last couple of years, both as a runner and as a pass catcher, he's not put up those insane type of stats like, for instance, Charbonnet, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 25 rushing touchdowns. He doesn't have those eye-popping type of numbers, but that's not his fault. It's because Georgia really spreads the ball around. They're not trying to feature any one player. They're not trying to feature any one running back. They've got a 3 running back kind of rotation that they would work through in just about every single game that I watched. So while he would get his share of touches, he was never going to be that 20 touch a guy there at Georgia. And so it's understandable why maybe the production isn't as great. Still, the production is very good. 900 yards nearly this year, 5.5 yards per carry. Also caught a lot of balls out of the backfield over the last couple of years, and it's going to be the place we really lock into with him as far as a skill set that he brings to the table that is very, very unique. But the Seahawks have gotten themselves one hell of a player here in Kenny McIntosh, and I can't wait to unpackage this one with you guys in the film study. So let's jump on into the tape. Let's take a look at this kid and what exactly he does offer to our Seattle Seahawks. The first aspect of Kenny McIntosh's game that I want to concentrate in on is his quickness. For though he didn't test particularly well across the board at the combine, there was one specific metric where he was actually elite, and this would be the 10-yard split, or the first 10 yards of the 40-yard dash. He posted a 1.54 time score in that regard of things, which would put him approximately about 97th percentile for the position. And what's important about this is that that quickness that's tested shows up with what you see from him on the tape, specifically with how quickly he presses the hole and how quickly he gets through the hole. He may not have that home run speed to bust off those 60, 70, 80-yard runs, but he's fully capable of busting off those chunk runs time and time again. On this first play, we've got a read option right up the middle for a touchdown. And at first, this play doesn't look very notable as Georgia appears to have this well blocked at the point of attack. But if I were to take the tape and slow it down to right about here, what you will notice is that McIntosh has two early defenders at the line of scrimmage he's got to deal with. First, you have 92, who's absolutely thrown away his block. Georgia's 86, who now is sitting on the turf, looking at his feet, thinking about his life. And then 21, who's just to the right of 92. As you can see with this paused frame, they're about a yard away from McIntosh, and McIntosh is about a yard and a half away from clearing the hole. Yet somehow, some way, after he turns on those afterburners, he gets right through the hole, nearly untouched for a touchdown. On this next run, Kenny McIntosh shows off three skills that really do define him as a running back. First, you get that quickness. The backside defender is in pursuit. He seems to have an angle on Kenny McIntosh after he gets the ball, but Kenny turns on that quickness, gets outside of his grasp, and that defender finds himself face first with nothing but turf that he's eaten on. Then McIntosh is to the outside, and he notices he's got a defender coming up, and that defender has got to keep his outside leverage. So his job is to force Kenny McIntosh back inside. Kenny's aware of this, and so he puts his leg in the ground, cuts it back inside before he even gets to that defender, and finds himself with just enough free space to then find a little pathway to get the end zone. And then there is the piece de resistance, which is then him fighting through three tacklers to still get the touchdown. Another play with another unblocked defender, and another play with Kenny McIntosh quickly getting through the hole before that defender even has a chance to get a hand on him. Here it's number 10 for Missouri coming off the edge unblocked. Now this kid is in a little bit of a pickle because he's got to both play the quarterback and the ball carrier, which is hard in a 2-for-1 type situation. You'd prefer to tell a defender to just go after one or the other. But McIntosh, as soon as he gets the ball, is up to his accelerated top end and through that hole. Also some bonus points here for breaking a tackle in the open field with the safety coming downhill. One-on-one. You want your running backs to be able to break those kind of tackles against those safeties, and he does so here to extend this play and really break it out for a nice run. How can you tell just how quick a running back is on the field? Well, are the defenders jumping and diving at ankles a lot on the tape? Because they're just thinking they're this close to be able to make the tackle, but they end up being this much further away to actually making the stop. And on this play, that's just what you see from Florida. He gets one defender jumping for his ankles here initially, no chance. Then a couple steps later, deeper down into the play, he's got a secondary player coming up who again has a straightforward, clean, clear path to take this guy down to the ground, and yet he ends up flailing back at the turf once again. McIntosh, as he does with a lot of these runs, and I'll be showing a few more of these runs like this, puts the finishing touch on it, puts his head down, grinds out those last couple of yards. Just another thing to love about this kid. Byron Young of the Tennessee Volunteers was picked in this last draft in the 3rd round by the Los Angeles Rams, and he was a very good edge coming out of college, a very elite tester as well. He ran a 4.440, put up a 1.54 10-yard split, which would, of course, equal that very same testing score for Kenny McIntosh, his lone elite testing score. And on this particular play, you have Byron Young aligned at the right side of the defensive line here, or the top of your screen on the line of scrimmage. And it's going to be kind of interesting here because Georgia's going to leave him unblocked, and then they're going to run a pitch to his side of the field. Very interesting choice, and you would think here that he would have Kenny McIntosh dead to rights, as they are both theoretically about the same quickness and speed. In fact, he would be a little bit faster. But McIntosh is able to activate that quickness and acceleration that we've seen on a few of these cut-ups already and get right past the grip of Byron Young, turning this into a very positive play and getting the first down. Just a couple of cut-ups here that I'm going to show you that are going to display Kenny McIntosh's ability to hit the home run occasionally. He does have some speed. At least he's football fast. Maybe he's not track fast. Maybe he's not going to try out for any Olympics anytime soon. But when you put a football in his hands and he's got guys chasing him, he's as fast as anybody is on the football field. Another notable aspect of Kenny McIntosh's game is just how hard he runs with the football. You see it play in and play out where he will absolutely put his head down and get those dirty 3 yards when that's all there is to get. And if he happens to get it let loose out in the open field and he's got a safety coming downhill at him, he's not always necessarily just going to try to dance around him. He will absolutely be willing to dish out some punishment when the time is called for. Just look at what he does to this Missouri defender. Oh! But what you watch on the tape with him again and again is that hard running style to go with the elusiveness that he also offers. And when he finishes those runs, he's going to keep his feet moving. He's going to play bigger than his natural size because he can run like a guy that's 225 at times, really driving the pile forward in a way that you wouldn't expect for a guy that's a little bit undersized for the position. But he has absolutely fantastic power and strength in his game. I showed you once, and here you get to see it again, him just running a defender over. The man runs much bigger than his listed size. I've shown you a couple of these plays, and it frankly kind of reminds me almost Marshawn Lynch-like in this guy's ability to keep his feet when there's all this traffic around him and then still somehow find a way to still be pushing the pile forward. Another run here that'll show off the vision, patience, and quick reactions of Kenny McIntosh. He's getting an inside zone run here where his right guard and his right tackle are going to pull back across the formation. And post-snap, after he's gotten the ball, he quickly puts a hand on that back hip of that right tackle, letting him guide him to the hole. We oftentimes see these running backs get really impatient and press that hole too fast, not willing to wait for their blockers, but he does so here. And quickly this play develops where Missouri's got two defenders coming downhill that are unblocked, and all McIntosh has is that right tackle for those two defenders. McIntosh hits the pause button, drops in that little hesitation, which then causes the defenders to hesitate for a moment, which then allows his right tackle to lay that first block on the defender on the left. Then McIntosh uses that angle of pursuit against the defender on the right, as he doesn't have a clear pathway to McIntosh if he then bounces that play then outside, re-hitting that acceleration that I've already showed you he has to a great degree. The Minnesota defensive back is so impressed on this particular play that he actually high-fives Kenny McIntosh mid-play as they're going to the sideline. He just loved that run so much. Over the next couple of plays, take note of just how quickly Kenny McIntosh is reacting to things that are going on in the play. How quickly he can reroute from a given spot he's supposed to go with the ball pre-snap. Or if there's suddenly a defender that's closing there who wasn't there a moment earlier and he's able to get out of that tackle and break free. Time and time again on his tape, you're seeing him able to react to things on a fly in a way that a lot of running backs can't, and certainly those type of running backs that you would call robotic. They can go from point A to point B, they go to their ascribed hole, they'll do what you tell them to do and do it well, but you can't ask them to be creative. Well, he's got imagination for days, and he absolutely can be creative, and he absolutely has lightning fast, quick reactions on the football field. I haven't even got to what might be the most devastating aspect of Kenny McIntosh's game when he first bursts onto the scene here in the NFL, and that is his ability as a pass catcher. Few in college football caught more passes out of the backfield than him over the last couple of years. 65 total catches, 4 touchdowns receiving, and he is absolutely lethal in this aspect of his game. He's got really good hands. He can catch the ball out away from his body. He also really quickly turns into a runner after he catches the ball. He doesn't take a lot of time to get that thing gathered and go. And we already saw he's very slippery in the open field as a purely running back. You get him in the open field now with that slipperiness, going up against defensive backs and safeties, and he's also able to break tackles after the catch. But all over his tape, you see Georgia using him as a wide receiver whenever they can, and him doing it very well. Even aligning him at times in the slot, aligning him as a wide receiver. And when watching all of the tape on the top running backs in this past draft, I have to say, it really came down to Jahmyr Gibbs as the number 1, but then Kenny McIntosh as the number 2 best receiving running backs in this entire class. And not just in receiving it out of the backfield, but being really unique in the respect of they were the only real 2 running backs of the top end running backs I saw in this class that you really could align out as wide receivers, and they comfortably could run those routes, that they could get up to the stem of the route, make a cut, and lose that defender that's trying to cover them in space. And that showed up on McIntosh's tape in a variety of different ways as a pass catcher. So he really does provide a lot to the Seahawks in that respect of things from day one. I don't know if he's going to slide in and become the de facto third down back day one over the top of a guy like Zach Charbonnet, but I do believe like the Seahawks are going to find a way to feature him in some fashion. Get him those 5 or 6 catches out of the backfield over a couple games and see if he can't be dangerous with those touches. There are so many little roles Kenny McIntosh can carve out for himself here initially as he comes onto the scene and finds himself a little bit stacked on the depth chart. Kick returner, punt returner, fly sweep, bubble screen guy, which is kind of an important part of this offense and one that's been missing really ever since Shane Waldron's come aboard. Not for the lack of Seahawks not trying to find a fit to that role. That's what Eskridge was supposed to be, but they just haven't had a guy who could really perform those Cooper Kupp-like duties that we see with the Rams offense and how McVay utilizes him. Well, maybe you can take a guy like Kenny McIntosh and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you can have Jackson Smith be the guy doing the receiving stuff of Cooper Kupp, and maybe Kenny McIntosh can be that fly sweep bubble screen stuff that Cooper Kupp does. And they could be like Power Rangers, and the combination of the two of them and what they provide for you, the position is equivalent in the production. It's certainly a very important role into this offense. But even when he's not performing into a specified role, Kenny McIntosh can run the rock and run it well. I know the speed is missing, and that gives some people some trepidation. But for me, when I come back to that 1-5-4 10-yard split, that's the thing that I really get locked into. That's the part for me as running backs that's the most important part. They're not running 40-yard dashes on every given play, but just about every given play when they're running the rock, they're going to run through a 10-yard space. And if they can be quicker than everybody else in that 10-yard space, then that's the real thing that should carry the day for us when it comes to the running back position, sometimes even over speed. And when you turn on the tape, Kenny McIntosh absolutely does have that burst. He is really quick through the hole, as we showed on the highlights, and I think that that's going to show up at the NFL level. He's also, as a pass catcher, absolutely going to have an effect in that standpoint too. You get him matched up on a linebacker, you get him lined wide on a linebacker and force that kind of mismatch, he's going to house it. He's going to get over the top. He will take the top of a defense off if you're going to leave that linebacker one-on-one with no safety help up over the top. There's so much this guy brings to the table. He may not eventually ever be our feature back, but he's going to get touches. He's going to do damage with those touches and help to make this team better. The Seahawks have also finally fully reinforced over the top of the beast mode curse. That curse that I've talked about many times that seemingly has lasted since Marshawn Lynch has left, where every single given year we see the running back room decimated by injuries to the point that you're having to call guys off the streets. Well, this past offseason, the Seahawks, with having Kenneth Walker here, DJ Dallas, drafting these two guys, have really fully stocked the position up as well as you could ask as a fan to try to overcome that beast mode curse. We'll see if this finally gets around it this year. As we saw last year, it hit just as hard as ever. Hopefully this season, God willing, everything will be fine in that respect of things, but they have the legitimate guys that can all carry the rock if they are all called upon to be that guy. For a segment of games, for a half of a schedule, whatever you ask of them, they can get that job done. So get excited about this backfield. Get excited about Kenny McIntosh. He's going to find a role on this team, and he's going to help you win football games, and he's going to continue to allow the Seahawks offense to remain balanced. Both pass and the run, 50-50. You don't know what's coming defensively. You've got to prepare for it all. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.
Yeah, I know I had a bad combine. I can say that. I admit that. But 7th round, that's just outrageous in my eyes. But, you know, like I said, God got his own ways. He got his plans. And, I'm trusting and believing in him and following his path. So that's all.